A new CNN poll of polls finds the race is still essentially locked in a tie.
Brand new poll from ABC News and Ipsos, which showed Kamala Harris up by 6 points over Donald Trump.
The crucial battleground states, he now leads Vice President Harris by 5 in Arizona.
The stage is set for one of the most electrifying showdowns in the U.S. political history. In a twist that no one saw coming some 2-3 months ago, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are now locked in the battle for the presidency. The stakes are monumental. The rhetoric is sharper than ever, and the country is bracing for a choice that could reshape its future. As these two iconic figures face off, it's not just about policies, it's about two visions for America clashing head-on in an epic political face-off. Buckle up, it's going to be a very wild ride. Now hold on, I bet you're asking, what's all this talk about America and the elections? How does that concern me? Well, friend, it concerns you a lot more than you know, because this election is not just about who is the president of America, but who will actually rule Nigeria. Grab to your seats, we are about to go on a revelation ride. But before we start, as an aside, in a recent video I did about China, you can check it out on the channel here, it shook a lot of people to the core. Accusations about bias, propaganda, bigotry. Someone even directly came to my DM and accused me of being a paid propagandist, an enemy of my people, being sponsored by the West. He even threatened to expose me to his platform on TikTok. In my mind, I'm like, you guys are getting paid to bash China.
You guys are getting paid?
Shame I did it for free then. But as an equal opportunity commentator, let's talk about the US today and their influence in Lagos, Nigeria. Everybody must collect. But before we can really understand what's going here, let's talk about another important election, the 2015 elections in Nigeria.
I call on all Nigerians to peacefully express your views and to reject the voices of those who call for violence.
What's Obama doing talking about Nigerian elections? We'll get to that in a bit. The 2015 Nigerian elections was nothing short of dramatic, a political showdown that reshaped the country's future. It pitted incumbent Goodluck Jonathan, who had ruled during a period of relative stability. Now he stood against Muhammadu Buhari, a former military ruler with a no-nonsense image. Tensions were high, as many believe Nigeria was at a crossroads. Now here's where it gets interesting. Adding to the intrigue, there were whispers that the US government under President Obama was working behind the scenes to influence the outcome. Obama's administration publicly called for peaceful, credible elections. Now, it was rumored that the US had grown frustrated with Jonathan's leadership, particularly over corruption and security issues. Buhari, seen as a leader who could crack down on corruption and stabilize the country, gained favor. Now, are these just rumors, or is there really truth to it? We'll get there. First, let's get back to the election. As the election approached, the atmosphere was tense, with widespread fear of violence and election rigging. But against all odds, it turned out to be one of Nigeria's most peaceful transitions of power. Buhari's victory, marked by over 2.5 million votes in his favor, was historic. It was the first time in Nigeria's history that an incumbent had been ousted through the ballot box. For many, Buhari's win signaled a fresh start, a break from the old political elite. The election was hailed internationally as a major victory for democracy in Africa, and Buhari's rise to power became a symbol of change. But for others, the influence of foreign powers like the US in Nigeria's political process was a point of contention, raising questions about sovereignty and outside intervention. Now, this leads us to the question, did the US really have a hand in the 2015 election? And why? What's their business if? The US played a notable role in Nigeria's 2015 election, with President Obama's administration reportedly influencing the process to encourage a peaceful transition of power. The US expressed concerns over corruption and security under Goodluck Jonathan's leadership, particularly in handling the Boko Haram insurgency. Obama released a public message urging peaceful and credible elections, and the US was involved in diplomatic efforts behind the scenes. John Kerry, then Secretary of State, visited Nigeria ahead of the election to mediate tensions and stressed the importance of democratic norms. It was speculated that the US had grown frustrated with Jonathan's administration and quietly supported Buhari, believing his strongman persona could bring reform and crack down on corruption. Many viewed the US influence as crucial in ensuring the relatively peaceful outcome and the successful defeat of the incumbent, marking a historic moment in Nigeria's democracy. However, some questioned the level of US involvement, raising concerns about foreign interference in Nigeria's sovereignty during the critical election. But from all these, it's like the US has Nigeria's interests at heart, right? They don't want a corrupt government, so they influence the elections for positive change, right? Lies. It's time you knew the real reason. You know him as Jagaban, the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But before all this, he was the pet of the United States of America. Let me explain. If you did not know before, know now. Bola Ahmed Tinubu has always had a strong relationship with the United States. One of the most notable chapters in his life involving the US occurred in the 1990s, where he sought refuge there during Nigeria's dark days under the military dictatorship of General Sani Abacha. In 1994, as a prominent figure in the National Democratic Coalition, NADECO, Tinubu was heavily involved in the movement to restore democracy after the annulment of the 1993 presidential election, which he had been won by Moshood Abiola. His vocal opposition to Abacha's oppressive regime made him a target, forcing him into exile in the United States. During this period, Tinubu settled in Chicago, Illinois, where he was actively engaged with other Nigerian political exiles who were working toward the downfall of the military dictatorship. The US became a safe haven for Tinubu and others who were part of the pro-democracy struggle, offering them the space and the freedom to continue their activism without fear of persecution. While in the US, Tinubu maintained close connections with influential American politicians and diplomats who were sympathetic to the cause of democracy in Nigeria. One notable figure was former US Ambassador to Nigeria, Walter Carrington, who served during the Clinton administration. Carrington, a staunch advocate for human rights and democracy in Nigeria, became an ally to Tinubu and others in the pro-democracy movement. He used his diplomatic influence to support their efforts and bring international attention to the abuses under Abacha's regime. In addition to his political activities, Tinubu had a long-standing connection to the US through his education. He studied in the United States, earning a degree in accounting from Chicago State University in 1979. His time there not only broadened his academic horizons, but also helped him form relationships that would later prove beneficial during his years of exile and beyond. Following his return to Nigeria in 1998 after Abacha's sudden death, Tinubu's relationship with the US continued to evolve. As Lagos governor from 1999 to 2007, Tinubu worked with various American institutions and businesses to foster economic development in Lagos. Under his leadership, Lagos began to emerge as a financial hub, attracting foreign investments, including from US-based companies. Tinubu's administration collaborated with organizations like the US Agency for International Development, USAID, on projects aimed at improving health, education, and infrastructure in Lagos. So even before becoming president of Nigeria and allegations came up of his alleged involvement in narcotics, the case was run into the ground. Every time journalists tried to get information from the US, they were met with a lot of resistance and paperwork. How convenient. Anyways, in more recent years, Tinubu's ties with the US have remained significant as he continues to seek diplomatic and economic partnership. His conversations with US officials, including the recent 2023 telephone conversation with US Secretary of State Antony Blinken, reflects his ongoing engagement with American leadership. During that call, Tinubu emphasized Nigeria's crucial role in Africa and highlighted the need for US support in areas like security and economic investment. So imagine you were Tinubu and the US has been a close ally for decades. When you become president, what would you do? Yes, that's right. You give them a foothold in your country. You see, for years, even before he became president, Tinubu has been in the background controlling things and moving people around like chess pieces. And I bet you're wondering, It's just US consulate. What's the big deal? Well, it's a pretty big deal for a burgeoning development like Echo Atlantic to house the US consulate. Let's take a look at Egypt. Egypt has been struggling for years to get buy-in into its new carrier city, and a major hurdle was getting foreign embassies to be domiciled in this ambitious new city, much like Echo Atlantic. Tons and tons of diplomacy and negotiations had to take place for that to happen. And from the US supporting Egypt and giving them all the support they needed, up to the tune of $1.3 billion in military aid to secure their country and fight terrorists, to pulling about $58 million in aid since September last year, the moment Egypt stopped being a good boy by not making progress on human rights. The truth is, if you do not dance to the tune of the US, you don't get any goodies. So for the US to have a consulate in Echo Atlantic of all places, it is not a coincidence. And the question is, why? Why Echo Atlantic? Don't get it twisted. The mere fact that the US consulate's decision to relocate to Echo Atlantic in Lagos is more than just a strategic move. It's proof that the United States recognizes Lagos as a key player in Africa's future. They see something that most Nigerians don't see. The question is what? We'll get to that. Echo Atlantic is a massive new development built on reclaimed land along the coast of Victoria Island. It represents the growing ambition of Lagos to become a global economic hub. Now, by placing the new US consulate in this ultra-modern, high-security location, the US is signaling its intent to be a central part of the city's evolution and future growth. Lagos is already the economic powerhouse of Nigeria, responsible for about a third of the country's GDP, and Echo Atlantic symbolizes the future of this booming metropolis. With its cutting-edge infrastructure, upscale business districts, and environmentally sustainable designs, Echo Atlantic is poised to become the new financial center of West Africa. The US clearly sees the potential for Lagos to emerge as a dominant global city, much like Dubai or Singapore, and it wants to establish a strong foothold there early on. But this is good, right? Echo Atlantic will soon be huge. Hooray for Lagos. You see, Lagos is not the only place the US has tried this strategy. Take Southwest London, for example. The US Embassy moved to 9 Elms in Battersea, a rapidly developing area once considered underutilized. Sound familiar? I have been there. Now, over the time, the area has transformed into a thriving business district with high-end residential developments and cutting-edge office spaces, drawing global corporations and foreign investments. By situating itself in a previously untapped area, the US played a part in turning 9 Elms into a sought-after prime real estate hub in London. The US is looking to replicate this success in Lagos, and Echo Atlantic offers the same opportunity, being part of the city's rapid development as it grows into a global center of commerce and finance. The consulate's presence is not just about diplomatic activity, it's about establishing a permanent US influence in a space that would likely drive Nigeria and even Africa's economic future. The American government and corporations understand the economic potential in Lagos, and they want to position themselves in the heart of that growth. By investing in Echo Atlantic, the US is ensuring it stays close to the business and political elites in Nigeria's most prosperous and rapidly evolving city. It's a way to cement influence, build deeper economic ties, and maintain a strong diplomatic presence in what many believe will be one of Africa's key cities for decades to come. Now, where does that leave you? See, if you are to learn anything from the rapid development of Southwest London, particularly in the 9 Elms and Battersea areas, depending on who you are, it can be an opportunity to plug in early, or a cautionary tale of how large-scale urban transformation, driven in part by international influence, including the US Embassy's relocation, can significantly impact local residents, particularly when it comes to affordability and property value. You see, when the US Embassy moved to 9 Elms in 2018, it was part of a broader effort to revitalize what was once a post-industrial part of London, or so everyone thought. But in just a few years, the area saw a massive influx of investment, new luxury developments, and modern office spaces. But with this transformation came a steep rise in living costs, effectively pushing out long-term residents who could no longer afford to live in the area. For instance, property prices in Ownahomeng skyrocketed after the US Embassy's arrival, with luxury apartments in new developments like Embassy Gardens starting at £600,000, while some penthouses reached £10 million. Even rental prices surged, with a two-bedroom apartment in the area going for £3,000 to £5,000 a month. Local shops and businesses previously catering to the needs of average citizens were replaced by high-end stores, restaurants, and services targeting a wealthier demographic. This led to gentrification, where traditional working-class communities were priced out, forced to move further away as the areas became an exclusive enclave for wealthy foreign investors, diplomats, and professionals. This same pattern of development and its associated problems is beginning to unfold in Lagos, particularly with the US consulate's relocation to Eko Atlantic. Eko Atlantic, like Ownahomeng, is being marketed as a futuristic city within a city, an ultra-modern development designed to attract high-end businesses, expatriates, and wealthy Nigerians. The cost of housing in Eko Atlantic is already astronomical by Nigerian standard. A luxury apartment in the district can cost between 200 million to 500 million naira. And with some properties going even higher, renting a two-bedroom apartment in the area could range from 15 million naira to 20 million naira. Prices that are well beyond and above the range of average Lagosians. As Eko Atlantic continues to develop, there's an opportunity or real risk, depending on how you look at it, that the surrounding areas will follow the path of Ownahomeng, with housing prices in Victoria Island and Lekki escalating rapidly. Middle-class Nigerians who once lived comfortably in these neighborhoods are already feeling the pressure, and many are being pushed further inland to less developed parts of Lagos. Meanwhile, Eko Atlantic is becoming a playground for the elite, with luxury shopping malls, five-star hotels, and corporate offices catering to an affluent international crowd, much like what happened in southwest London. The problem is that with this type of rapid elite-driven development, it often benefits foreign investors and wealthy Nigerians, while the average citizens face the brunt of the consequences. Basic goods and services in the surrounding areas become more expensive as local businesses shift to cater to a wealthier clientele. Public infrastructure such as schools and hospitals may see improvements in this high area and zones, but these benefits do not often trickle down to the broader population. In Lagos, where the housing crisis is already acute, the rise of Eko Atlantic threatens to exacerbate existing inequalities. The city's population is growing rapidly, with an estimated 20 million residents, and the demand for affordable housing far exceeds supply. The focus on luxury development like Eko Atlantic divert attention and resources away from building the kinds of affordable housing that average Nigerians desperately need. Moreover, as the city becomes more divided between the ultra-rich and the rest of the population, social tensions could worsen. In essence, what happened in southwest London could very well be a preview of what's to come in Lagos, as the US and other global players gain a foothold in Eko Atlantic, driving up prices and creating a wealthy enclave average Lagosians are left to grapple with rising costs, limited housing options, and the ever-widening gap between the rich and the poor. The fear is that Lagos, like parts of London, will become a city where only the elite can afford to live in the most desirable areas, while the rest are pushed to the fringes. I mean, this is wonderful news for wealthy investors to position early, but this shift could affect not only housing, but erode the social fabric of the city, leaving long-term residents disconnected from their own neighborhoods. But this doesn't have to spell doom for you. As I speak, hundreds of Lagosians who have the means are waking up to what's really going on here and investing in Eko Atlantic. When the boom happens, they too will be among the top 1% and benefit from this. If not, the whole thing will belong to the US and other foreign countries like China. Yes, I mentioned China again, sue me. This can all be confusing, right? You don't even know where to start with investing or even getting information on how to go about it. Prices of land in Eko Atlantic start at $1,000 per square meter, with the minimum of 1,000 square meters that you can purchase, and apartments from as low as $100,000 to $250,000. This is where I come in. contact me and we can discuss how you too can get a slice of the pie in Eco Atlantic. They are trying to take Lagos away from under us, and now you know about it. Your move. What are you going to do about it? Thank you so very much for watching. This is the Ownahome TV show. Here at Ownahome, we believe that owning a home, owning a property should not make you lose sleep. So we're committed to giving you the very best property recommendations and insider real estate gist. We've talked about China, now I've talked about the West. And speaking of the West, we're going to be starting an event tour, a real estate event tour, and we're going to be starting at Canada. And the flyers are going to be on the screen now. And if you are in this environment, contact us and be there at our event. We're talking about the benefits of investing in Canada and also investing in Nigeria and kind of coming to a middle ground. This is a tour that we're going to be starting from Canada. We're going to go to the UK and to the US. So even if you're watching this video late, contact us to see the next city we're going to be in. Thank you so much for watching. See you at the very next video. Bye-bye.